Glasgow as a site of visual ecological politics. Indeed, it has been less than 2 years since the stage was set for a gathering of media analysts, reporters, world leaders, business people, and energy conglomerates from both green, higher sustainable walks of produce and those with greater polluting and ecologically damaging backgrounds. An estimated 39,000 people were registered attendees for COP26, which brought about a high demand for accommodation. According to The Ferret, a Scotland-based investigative journalist platform, of the 11,734 non-governmental organisations that registered to come to Glasgow as official observers of the climate negotiations, they discovered that 233 people were linked to the fossil fuel industry. The biggest delegation was from the International Emissions Trading Association, which registered 103 individuals. Its delegation included 3 executives from the giant carbon-emitting energy conglomerate BP. There were also officials from Shell, the Norwegian oil company, Equinor, the US oil giant Chevron, and France's Total Energies. But where to accommodate 39,000 people? Hotels such as the Hilton in the wider Glasgow area were fully booked, the Premier Inns, the Radisson, and various others. But none as close to the action as the Crowne Plaza Hotel, which was erected its own protective fence along the riverside to prevent acts of terrorism. Just 2 months ahead of the conference, Greenpeace UK's climate campaigner, Caroline Jones, said the Glasgow talks must be the first climate summit where it's the rooms themselves that are one of the elephants in the room. They go on to emphasise the importance of improving the energy efficiency of buildings and housing in the UK, stating that buildings are directly responsible for more than 1/6 of the UK's total emissions. But many of the venues chosen by the Glasgow City Council for COP26 were not to a good standard of lowered carbon emissions and general wastage. The SEC Centre, which formed the epicentre of negotiations, was given an Energy Performance Certificate rating of F. Assessors told its owners back in 2012 that they should consider investigating the use of low and zero carbon technologies. As of the beginning of the conference in October 2021, neither it nor any of the other SEC properties had renewable energy sources installed. And then there is the Crowne Plaza Hotel, which was fully booked for COP26, and in September of 2020, a full year ahead of the conference, the hotel was given an F rating, with approximate annual emissions of over 1.5 million kilos of CO2. Not such an impressive score for a hotel that clearly wants to impress. To apply a quote from Denis Zuyev, head of the Department of History and Heritage at the University of St. Joseph in Macau, Zuyev believes those cities which do not overtly marketize their historical significance often foreground their futuristic visual look and appearance for the new coming viewers, those being tourists or residents, to enjoy the front stage of the spectacle, the day and night performances of the superlative, slick and iconic architecture, while the backstage of the city, its socio-material assemblages and informality, those remain carefully tucked away. Looking to the Crown, its glamorous reflective windows plastered up the side of its skyscraper structure, reflecting the sky back to the observer. What is created is a mismatch of similar colours and textures, the pattern of the sky reflected by a prism, a floating tower of clouds sitting on the riverbank, a grand events hall to bolster its reputation as an arbiter of unity, agreements, recognition of achievements, and new goals set out under conferences for people of various backdrops. These attributes of success, prestige, and good management that are subscribed to our observation of these types of splendorous architecture may successfully be disguising 2 of the great wrongs of humanity in the 21st century, our negligence and our hypocrisy. How could this space have been allowed to retain its dire conditions of environmental sustainability and yet host an event like COP26? One of the biggest agreements to come out of COP in Glasgow was an agreement for regulating carbon markets. This new agreement would allow countries to trade the right to emit greenhouse gases, solidifying carbon trading for the first time as a key element for countries that intend to meet their obligations to reduce emissions as agreed under the Paris Agreement. Environmental groups have argued that carbon trading is a false solution to the climate crisis because pollution cuts are not guaranteed. But IETA says that market-based approaches could effectively deliver climate goals. Now, this part may seem speculative at first, but consider what it may have been that has catapulted the human race to its current predicament of ecological and perhaps class steady collapse due to the threat of melting ice caps, rising seas, polluted rivers, water wars, increasingly volatile weather patterns, and year-on-year higher severity and higher frequency of floods, wildfires, hurricanes, drought, and famine. Was humanity always so predetermined in its assurance that the next best thing had to come, newly packaged, washed several times past the checks and safety regulations just to be that little surer when your plate arrives at your table? Built 2 floors higher, expanded to grab the attention of a simple observer, or to perceive the observer, a citizen of the world at first glance, as a customer with purchasing power? Was it always this way? Did we notice when the population of the red squirrel, native to Great Britain, was squashed by the introduction of grey squirrels to our habitat, and that the red's numbers began to plummet at a time of mass net migration? Merely a minuscule consequence of greater work being done, perhaps. The markets dominated by internationally invested companies had decided there must be a continued rate of mass economic growth and ecological change with it. Out with the old and in with the new. Or did we notice the changes to the responsibilities of our water companies? How about when, after months of internal company reviews for expenditure cuts to safe and assertable sewage disposal, Scottish Water dumped 650,000 cubic metres of untreated sewage into the Clyde? And 2 years later, an unknown amount was again polluted into the Clyde, further upstream. Ah yes, the Clyde River that powers Glasgow with its hydroelectric power stations, and with further plans expected for hydroelectric projects to be considered at suitable flow rates on the River Clyde. The Clyde that the Crowne Plaza Hotel so proudly towers over looks to be a promising investment in Glasgow for green energy infrastructure amongst competing company investors. If the water that is flushed for hydroelectric energy is to be polluted, then so be it. There's always a market-based approach that can suit both the needs of the public and the wants of the companies. What this demonstrates is that Glasgow City Council has engaged in the kind of politics that Denis Zuyov discusses in Untangling the City Visually. There is an attentiveness to touristic modes of visibility that is put before the ecological and structural interests of the layout of the city of Glasgow and its historical, architectural, and politically active elements. To improve our relationship with the city landscape, we must challenge what is foregrounded, where new structural designs of the modern age are meant to represent modernity, but fail to live up to their principles. Where there is a reordering of the layers of visibility, we must strive to keep our politics attentive and be critical of the layers that are obscured and lay hidden beneath the signs of prosperity.